This week on the Shame Free Life podcast radio show, we're going to have a talk that most people can relate to. It worked against you to work for you.
Today is about the power of you.
We can be whatever we dream.
You're locked into another episode of 15 Minutes of Shame. Each week, we'll help you rebuild your life one brick at a time by addressing real life issues from a practical and biblical perspective.
I had to believe in myself like never before.
This is the Shame Free Radio Show.
Finding the solution to become the greatest.
And now your host, minister, author, grief and trauma support specialist, Dr. Ronald Zion Roseborough.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is it.
Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are from coast to coast and from around the globe. You are locked inside of another installment live inside the Shame Free Life Radio podcast show. I am your host, Ronald Zion, and it's a pleasure to be back with you once again. And we are going to tackle this amazing subject that I think that everyone, I don't care who you are, regardless of your ethnic background, your color, your gender, your religion, whatever, everyone under the sound of my voice can relate to. It worked against you to work for you, and we will return after this quick commercial break. Have you ever felt alone and life is out of control? Perhaps like a sailboat at sea in the midst of a tsunami. Well, you're not alone. Here at the Shame Free Life, LLC, we offer services in trauma recovery, crisis intervention, and empowerment coaching. We operate in integrity, confidentiality, empathy with coaching ethics. Contact us at theshamefreelife.com. or email us at contact@theshamefreelife.com. You may not be responsible for your injury, but you are responsible for your healing. Let us help you rebuild your life one brick at a time, because your life begins when you say so. And we are back. It worked against you to work for you. You know, I think that when we begin to look at the scope of our lives and certain things that have happened to us, great things that have happened, wonderful things, but also tragic and traumatic events that have occurred in our lives. One of the things that we oftentimes say, I know I used to say it over and over again, like a broken record. For those who understand records back in the day, if you are of that age genre, you feel me? I wish I can hit the rewind button and go back to 25. I wish I knew what I know now back then. I'll hit the rewind button and now we'll go back to age 18, age 16, etc. Now, we all can say that, but the fact of the matter is that we cannot go back, and we have to play the hands that are dealt to us, good, bad, or indifferent. But the wonderful thing that I like about life is that that each second of the clock is ticking. We will never get back that time, and I know that the word says that our Father Yahweh will redeem the time for us, and He will restore unto us the years that the cankerworm and the palmer worm and the caterpillar have eaten up. That doesn't necessarily mean that if it is, what time is it now? It is 1 o'clock here, Eastern Standard Time. That doesn't mean that He'll turn back the clock and now it's no longer 1 o'clock, but it's actually 10 in the morning. And whatever I did not accomplish, I now have time to accomplish. He doesn't mean that. But what He does mean is that I will be able to now restore, give you a spirit and a mindset of a restoration. Now to use the time that you do have in such a manner that it will not be wasted time like you're used to, or that has taken place in your life. So I think that when we talk about traumatic events again that have happened, what better character that we can look at and to draw from than the life of Joseph. Joseph happens to be one of my favorite characters in the Bible, and his story is absolutely amazing. I can identify with him on all fronts. And I'm pretty sure that even if you can't identify with him on all fronts, there are certain aspects of this particular biblical character that you can identify with for your oneself concerning your own life. Now, I just want to read a couple of verses here before we get into the very heart of it worked against you to work for you. In Genesis chapter 37, we'll begin there, verse 18 through 28. And it says, now, when they saw him afar off, and speaking of his brothers, Joseph, he had these dreams of doing great things. People will bow down before him. Have you ever had dreams in your life? Visions? Maybe God gave you visions. Maybe there was something different about you and you just didn't roll with everybody else. You couldn't click with everybody else. There was just something unique about you and it seemed kind of eccentric. And maybe you were seen by others as being quirky because they were too busy being the coolest cats around, the prettiest girls around, hanging with the most popular people, driving the latest foreign cars, and it's like a cookie cutter mentality. But you are different because you were made different to do something different. Well, that was Joseph. In the midst of his cookie cutter brothers, he was completely different, and he had dreams that were given to him by the Most High Yahweh. And in verse 18 again says, now when they, his brothers, saw him from afar off, people are looking when you think they're not looking. When they saw him from afar off, they conspired against him to kill him. Have you ever had someone to conspire against you? They just didn't like how you look. They just did not like how you speak. They don't like your color. They don't like your religion. They don't like your gender. They just don't like you. They don't like your hair. They don't like the way that you walk. They don't like your weight. They don't like that you have a checkered past. They don't like the fact that you don't have a quote unquote checkered past, but everyone does. They just don't like you. And they conspired against him to kill him. Verse 19, then they said to one another, because you know that misery, they travel in mischief packs. Look, here comes the dreamer. He's coming our way. Verse 20, come, let us now kill him and throw him into a pit. And we will say that some wild beast has come to devour him. We shall see what will become of his dreams. Now, wasn't that mischievous? Now we're going to see what's going to become of his dreams now. But Reuben, in verse 21, heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. Verse 22, and Reuben said to them, shed no blood, but throw him into the pit which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him, that he might deliver him out of their hands, and bring him back to his father. Verse 23, so it came to pass when Joseph had come to his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his coat, the coat of many colors, that was on him. There are many people, not only do they plan to or have conspired against you to destroy you, but to strip you of your dignity, to strip you of your self-respect, to strip you of your identity, to strip you. And so in verse 24, and they took him and threw him into a pit that was empty, where there was no water in it, And they sat down in verse 25 and ate a meal. You know, there are people that are just so wicked. Not only do they enjoy mischief and participate in the mischief that they propagate against others or perpetrate against others, but they're so evil that they can sit down and have a meal together and congregate about what they have accomplished in your life that was evil. And then they lifted up their eyes and they looked, and there was a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels bearing spices, balm, and myrrh on their way to carry them down to Egypt. Verse 26. So Judah said to his brothers, now this is interesting, what profit is there to just kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hands be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brothers listened to him. So Judah came up with this, his brother, Joseph's brother, he came up with this grandiose scheme. Hey, listen, let's not just kill him. I mean, we want to kill him and we hate him. We hate his vision. We hate the dream. We hate that he or she have aspirations to go further beyond where we are, because we don't believe in ourselves to go further than where we are. We are comfortable in living this way. We're comfortable in having this mindset. We're comfortable in making excuses, but Joseph is not. And based on that reality, we want to kill him. But instead of just killing him outright, which we hate his guts, let's make some money off of him. You know, there is profit off of people's pain, and we can see it all day long in the media, that there is so much pain that people are profiting from. And there's nothing wrong with beautifying yourselves. You know, the cosmetic industry, a multi-billion-dollar industry, etc. I think that you should look your best, and whatever that looks like to you, that is your business. But there's so many industries and companies that profit off of the pain, the inner pain of others.
God, today.
How less we feel about ourselves and how much rejection that we have gone through. And so therefore, there's always an element, there's always a substance, there's always a good or a service that is offered to those of us who are in inner pain, and we're looking to escape that inner pain. Whether it's pills, drugs, alcohol, whether it's porn, whether it's sex, whether it's, the club scene, every single weekend, trying to escape the pain. And therefore, these industries profit off of that reality. Verse 28, the final verse. Then Midianite traders passed by. So the brothers pulled Joseph up after they finished their meal, right? Lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt, meaning bondage. It's interesting how his brothers sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver, and Judas sold the Messiah, Christ, for 30 pieces of silver. Have you ever been sold out in your life? I mean, that is a rhetorical question, because we've all gone through traumatic situations in our lives. And many of these traumatic situations were life-changing, right? To change the trajectory and the course of our lives. There may be some people listening right now that are just pissed off of what happened. There's some people right now that are still traumatized by what happened. Whether it was 7, 18, 21, 25, 30, 35, whatever. May have been 5 years old. But these things happen. And there's a lot of questions when oftentimes things happen in our lives that take us sideways. in a totally different direction. A lot of questions that we have, but a lot of answers that we don't get. But I want to talk to you very briefly about 4 things that I believe. Before I even say that, I really believe that our past has prepared us for our present. Your past has prepared you for your present. And it's all about how we actually look at it, examine it, analyze it, critique it, and reframe it that would bring us to a conclusion, an inner resolve that, you know what? I don't like what I went through. I got a problem in what I went through. Hell, if I could change this episode of my life in my past, I would. If God would allow me to erase this part of my life and replace it with something, I would. But I do understand that my past has prepared me for my present. Now, I want to talk to you very briefly about 4 things in which I believe. 4 things that the tutor of your past has prepared you for. The tutor of your past. And I think that life is it is a stage to prepare us for the finality, or the not just the finality, but the finale, the grand finale. I think that life is a classroom experience. And those of us who are believers and we understand eternity, but I really believe that it is a classroom experience and not just, eternity. Once the expiration date has taken place on this particular earthly plane. However, there is eternity in another plane. But I believe that this is a classroom experience. And just like we have all participated in some form of school, whether it is a charter school, the public school, a private school, we all have had our experience in a school system. And it profits no one to remain in the 5th grade and not be promoted to the 6th grade. It profits no one to remain in the 10th grade, yet not be promoted or graduate to become a senior. It does not profit to remain a senior for 12 years and never graduate. But oftentimes, when we're taking various courses and various pop quizzes and tests, there are times when we do well, when we study well, when we invest our time well, but then there are times where we don't do so well. And you know what? I got a D. I got a C when I should have made an A. I should have aced this. You know what? I flunked this test. I can't flunk another one. So there are times when we don't pass those tests. But I'm so grateful to God that he gives us a retest. I'm so grateful that oftentimes we're not discarded and thrown away because you blew it. Because if that was the case, nobody would be listening to this podcast.
God, today.
Because we have all blown it in one regard or another. And we have all gone through various traumatic events in our lives. And it's very subjective. Your trauma's not mine and vice versa. But I want to talk to you about 4 things that the tutor of your past have implemented in your life to prepare you for your present. And I look at our past as being a tutor. What is a tutor? A tutor is one who is committed to partner with you to help you become a much better and proficient student, to not just take in information to regurgitate, but to know the information to graduate.
God today.
That is a tutor. That tutor's job, that tutor's mission is to now bring out the best in you, to challenge the worst in you, to sharpen areas in you that you didn't even realize exist by way of self-discipline and self-accountability. So one of these four things that I believe that the tutor of the past prepared us for in our present is clarity. Clarity means to be coherent, intelligible, to have a sense of understanding. And we can see an example of this in Genesis 42:8, still dealing with the life of Joseph. So Joseph had understanding. So Joseph had some intelligibility. So Joseph was coherent. So Joseph had clarity in recognizing his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Isn't that interesting? That Joseph recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. I know that years had passed before they saw each other and laid eyes on one another. Time had lapsed. But now Joseph, not only did his stature change, his countenance change. Why? Because he was walking in his very purpose and plans by which he was created by the Most High God. And I tell you that when we begin to walk out our purpose, despite our past, there are individuals that won't even recognize you, but you'll recognize them. See, it's interesting that Joseph's brothers, they recognized him when they conspired against him. They recognized him when they talked about him and slandered his name. They recognized him when they threw him in a pit. They recognized him when they sold him into slavery. And of course, after slavery, he dealt with another traumatic incident that occurred. He was falsely accused of a crime that he did not commit against Potiphar's wife. She claimed that he attempted to rape her when he did not. And so now, not only are you deceived, not only are you conspired against, not only are you thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, bondage, but now an even greater bondage of you doing time when you didn't commit the crime. So they saw him before his purpose, but did not recognize him as he was walking out his purpose. And I want to encourage each and every one of you that as you begin to walk out your purpose, the reason why you're on this planet, and it's not to pay Verizon and your utility bills, it's not to pay your mortgage payment, it's not to buy another car, it's not to eat at, Cheesecake Factory. All those things are wonderful. They have a place, but you have a specific purpose that was given to you by the Most High God that only you can do. And it's interesting that as Joseph was walking out his purpose with clarity of his purpose, he had a sense of intelligibility about his purpose. The Word of God says that wisdom is the principal thing, therefore we ought to get it. And in all thine getting, get understanding. In all thy getting, get understanding. Understanding undergirds the principle of wisdom. So Joseph had an understanding of his purpose. He had an understanding of his identity. And even though his cloak, his robe, his coat was stripped from him then, but he's restored with something greater now. Something that cannot be stripped. And there's something in you that cannot be stripped. Your reputation may have been stripped. Your marriage may have been stripped. Your ministry may have been stripped. Your name may have been stripped. Things that you have worked for may have been stripped from you. People that you thought would have been your ride or die, dogs forever, they have been stripped from you. But God is raising you up to now put something on you, a robe of righteousness, a robe of identity, a robe of purpose, a robe of inner discipline that can never be stripped from you by anyone. And to back up this clarity, when you begin to have clarity, we begin to understand their part in your position. The part that they played and now the position that you now occupy. Genesis 45:5. Joseph said to his brothers, "Do not be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here." Don't be grieved or angry because you sold me here. This place right here that I've never been before. This place right here that is foreign to me. This place right here that in all intents and purposes I should not be in. But you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. You played a part in selling me out. You played a part in scandalizing my name. You played a part in selling me to a particular place that became my position to now be one to preserve life. There's something on the inside of you that preserves life. There's something on the inside of you that resuscitates someone who has flatlined. There's something on the inside of you that's waiting to come to pass, that's waiting to come to the top like cream in coffee. But in all of our lives, there's some people that they have a part to play, and that part may be painful, hurtful. It may be based on deceit, lies, betrayal. But that part must be played because there's a greater plan to move you into a place of position, of power, and purpose. To also back up this clarity, you'll begin to understand this, that their plot reveals God's plans. The plot that they had against you, there may be some business partners, trying to undercut you. Their plot reveals God's plans. Genesis 50:20. But as for you, Joseph speaking to his brothers again. They are having a full-fledged conference, and Joseph is the keynote speaker. But as for you, I'm not done with you. But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for my good. So when we begin to have clarity, when you begin to have clarity of what happened to you, when it happened, how it happened, where it happened, the participants that were surrounding what happened to you. When you begin to become cognizant, intelligible, coherent, and understanding of who you are, the part they played that pushed you to a position, you begin to understand the plot that they had against you that now pushed you into God's plans that he always had for you. You can walk in a place where you can recognize those who did it to you, but they can't recognize you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean in Joseph's instance that your frenemies, that your family members, that your enemies, that your so-called friends, they won't be able to recognize you. But because you are operating at such high level, such high frequency, that you're walking in such a place, in a state, in a condition of purpose and knowledge of your DNA, of why you are here on this planet. Something that they cannot even scratch the surface to even understand. That you're unrecognizable to them. All of the things that you went through, you're supposed to be dead. You're supposed to be in a straitjacket. You're supposed to be on medication. But you're doing this, yes, because it was your part, but my position. It was your plot, but it was God's plan. Number two, of how your tutors of your past begin to prepare you for the graduation of your present. Commitment. Commitment. Thank you, enemies, that you gave me greater clarity about myself, greater clarity about my God, greater clarity about my purpose, greater clarity about who I am as an individual, as a man or woman, who I really am, as opposed to the lie that I believe that I am not. But now there's a greater level of commitment that I have because you taught me these things unbeknownst to you. Out of the tragedy, out of the trash came a treasure of commitment. Now you have a greater level of commitment as we begin to now unpack and analyze and reframe the past. Instead of being a victim, I'm victorious. You know, instead of being a loser, no. I am loyal to the cause of who I am and who I serve. So a greater level of commitment. Commitment means a state of devotion, loyalty, and allegiance. Proverbs 16:3 reminds us, commit your work. Commit. Be loyal. Be devoted. I pledge allegiance to the flag of, no. I pledge allegiance to my God. I pledge allegiance to my greater level of commitment concerning him, concerning my assignment on this planet. I pledge allegiance to be a much better man, a much better woman. I pledge allegiance to my present and I salute my future. Commit thy work. What is your work today? What is your work? And I'm not talking about your 9 to 5. What is your work? What is your passion? What is your zone? Like Kobe and Michael Jordan, like Deion Sanders, like Tom Brady. I mean, there is a zone like Tiger Woods, like Usain Bolt, and so many others. There is a zone that you get in. That's your DNA. Commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established. When we commit a greater level of commitment, and Joseph learned that. He didn't just learn clarity, but he also learned commitment while he was in prison. He learned commitment while he was being sold out into slavery. He learned commitment during the most hard, hellish times of his past, of his life. That past was his tutor to prepare him to graduate. So now something that he could never learn in the institutions of higher learning. He could never learn this from Harvard, Yale. He could never learn this from Howard, Florida A&M. He could never learn this from the University of Florida State. He could never learn this from UCLA, Stanford, Baylor, Texas A&M, University of Texas. He could never learn this from those institutions, not knocking those institutions, but the school of life. And a tutor was assigned to him of his past to teach him. A tutor of trauma taught him a higher level of commitment. And there's a higher level of commitment that's in you, despite what you've gone through. There's a higher level of commitment that you have learned by what you have gone through. Number 3, consistency. Consistency. To be consistent means an unchanging in nature. That I'm the same way all day, every day. Consistency. Learning this from what we've gone through. Learning it from the past, the trauma of the past, the pain of the past, the tears of the past, the rejection, the abandonment of the past, the brokenness of the past, learning this from the tutor of the past. Now we are reframing this. We're not looking through the vision of victimization. We're looking at this through the opticals of overcoming.
God, today.
That I can see now much clearer, with much clarity. My vision is much clearer now. That I am an overcomer. My vision is much clearer now that I do have a purpose. I do have an assignment. I do have an identity. I do understand that I've got to be committed to it. I've got to be committed to my identity. I must be committed to my purpose. I must be committed to the God of my purpose. And with that, I've got to be consistent. What is it in you that lacks the consistency? Isn't it interesting how we go to our jobs consistently? We go to the malls consistently. We go to the markets and grocery stores consistently. We go to the gas station to gas up our vehicles consistently. How much more should we be consistent about the inner need of our purpose that undergirds our identity? And number 4, collaboration. Collaboration. To collaborate means the process of 2 or more people, entities, or organizations working together. And the scripture says, and we know in the book of Romans, and we know that all things work together for the good of them who love Yahweh, the Lord, who are the called. And you are the called. And according to his purpose, you are the called, even though you went through what you went through. You are the called, even though that you were stripped of your reputation. You were stripped of the vision of how you envision your life would be at this age in your life. You were stripped of so many opportunities, but you're still the called. And so, therefore, Joseph, he learned consistency. Going back to verse 3, before I hit collaboration in its entirety. To be consistent, to show up for yourself and show up for those who are counting on you. Collaboration. Now he knows who to collaborate with and those who he does not need to collaborate with at all. Going through trauma, going through hardships and adversities, it makes you wise and discerning. Now, notice I didn't say it makes you suspicious and paranoid. It makes you wise and discerning. Even his brothers that you would think that would have your back and love you and protect you from evil, far be it from them to plan evil against you. But that's what happened. But in moving forward, now, since they meant it for his evil, God meant it for his good and arranged them to play this part to now move him into his position. And because of their plot, it revealed God's plans to move him to a position of being second command in all Egypt. In second, there is no greater leader. Now, in that day, greater than Joseph, other than Pharaoh. As a matter of fact, he stood in the place of Pharaoh. He opened up his mouth as if Pharaoh was speaking. He had that level of authority, power, influence, might, and money. He was collaborating with individuals because of his gifts of being able to interpret dreams that God gave him. His gifts made room for him. And now he was able to now preserve the life of not only Egypt, but all the nations that were surrounding Egypt because a famine hit. And he was preparing them before the famine. Years before the famine hit, Joseph, in his wisdom, because of the dreams or the gifts that God gave him, in the beginning, it was those dreams that got him thrown into a pit. It was the dreams that got him sold into slavery. But now those same dreams in a position of power gave him even greater power to preserve, to save the life of individuals who in other intents and purposes, if Joseph was not there, they would starve to death. But it was Joseph that went before them to save their lives and even save the lives of those who mistreated him, dogged him out, talked about him, lied on him, plotted against him, rejected him, sold him into slavery. He even saved their lives. So let's go over the 4 points again of how the tutor of your past is assigned to you. Now I'm saying a tutor of trauma, a tutor of tears, a tutor of hardships was assigned to you in the classroom of life to teach you and to prepare you to pass the final exam to graduate with number 1, clarity. Number 2, a higher level of commitment. Number 3, graduating with consistency. Number 4, graduating with an understanding of the need for collaboration, to collaborate with like-minded people, to collaborate with people that can truly see you, collaborate with people that are not threatened by your gifts and not threatened by your power, not threatened by your money, not threatened by your looks, not threatened by your anointing, not threatened by anything that have to do with you, but they collaborate with you. They join forces with you in a concerted effort because they believe the vision that is in you. I hope that this has been a blessing to you. If so, I want you to share it. Share it with someone that could definitely benefit from this. And also, if you are interested in, and we're talking about trauma recovery coaching, again, whether it's individual, whether it's group, we have online resources. Go to the website, theshamefreelife.com. theshamefreelife.com. Also, there are books that are there that can definitely assist you on your road to self-discovery, self-care, self-improvement, self-empowerment. So, with that being said, as I always say, and I will continue to say, that your life, it begins when you say so. Why do you say that, Ronald Zion? Because it worked against you, but they didn't know that all the time it was working for you.
Thank you for joining us on the Shame Free Life Radio Show for 15 Minutes of Shame. Follow us on IG and Twitter at Shame Free Life. For information on promoting your business with us, contact us at theshamefreelife@gmail.com. Until next time, your life begins when you say so.